Hey guys, my name is Ons Valdaga. I am really into historical costuming. I play mostly with the SCA as well as various other local reenactment groups here in my region, and I enjoy historical costuming. Today we're going to talk about this guy, this pain in my ass. In all seriousness, it was kind of an interesting project to work on. I wouldn't say fun because there were some times where it was just, this is a lot. A quick little channel update / announcement is I made a Ko-fi. So if you'd like to see my research or any recipes that I would post in the future, any kind of documentation paperwork would be posted on that section. Everything will be free to see for the public, but if you want to toss a couple dollars my way every once in a while or something, it would be much appreciated. And yeah, I hope you have a great time. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to this video. Yeah, let's get into it. Here, as you can see, I'm repeating the process with the sleeves onto the collar because this is the main part of the video. This part was absolute hell, and a lot of people would be like, oh, I wouldn't even wish that on my enemy. I would. This was hell. I want them to experience the wrist pain and just having to sit there for 5 hours dotting. Just putting little dots. Putting little dots and making sure everything's lining up with such a loose weave linen. For 5 hours. I would wish that on my enemy. Yes. That may make me sound a little petty, but you know what? Yeah. This ended up being one of those things where it's just like, I suffered through it and I can claim the excitement, which is totally fine, totally understandable and everything. As well as when I had finished dotting halfway through this, someone had told me that they make iron-on transfer dots halfway through doing the neckline itself, which is already about 200 centimeters of doing all of those dots, all of those rows. They told me iron-on transfer dots exist. I just had to take a break. I had to step back and just go for a little walk. I had to take a break. Once those little dots were placed, it was time to move on to the stitching part of it. This was the easiest part of it. I think I should have just stopped in the long run, as some of the threads either broke or tangled, and I should have just used whole ones, because the ones I especially had tied back together, they broke when I was pulling them tight, like the drawstrings tight. So it's one of those things where I can go back and like redo if I ever wanted to go through this hell again. So just keep that in mind if you ever want to attempt this on your own. Always keep your strings whole. If they break, just pull it out and use a new one. Make sure you have enough thread. I didn't think I would have enough thread. So yeah, I ended up, it's totally fine. And the thread that I did cut when I finished doing all of these stitching, I took it out and I made sure that all the pieces were like salvageable, and I saved it to like use for further projects, so I'm not just wasting like 2 meters of thread. Now, the Tudor Tailor doesn't directly mention putting in a bar tack. They do have instructions on how to do one, but reading the instructions on putting together the smocked shirts, they don't mention actually doing it. So I'm just putting that in here with the black silk thread. This is the first time I got to use the silk thread, and it was lovely. Like, silk thread is easier for me to get here than linen thread, so I might just start using silk thread as a special thing instead of my linen, just because it's so much easier to get. I passed the thread to make the bar 3 times. I just felt like that was appropriate for some reason. It needed 3 lines. Always 3. 3 is a special number. Since I used the magical friction pens, I'm bringing the fabric back over to the ironing board and just ironing those markings out. This was, again, satisfying to watch as just those dots all disappear. I still haven't gotten all of them out, even after I've pulled together, so I have to go through and make sure that they come out before anything else, because there's still some dotting here and there. This is where I started the drawstring process. I found that you kind of really need more of like the 10 times what you need for your neck measurement. My neck measurement's roughly 30 centimeters, so I would have needed 300, but this was 420 centimeters. It was very hard to get down just to 35 centimeters, and I can live with the 35, but I had to go recut my facing that I made for this section. Totally fine. It was just more like, ugh, you know? This is also where I was talking about where I had to be like firm but gentle, as some of the strings were breaking, and you can see that I've already lost some in the drawing process. Once getting the hang of the process, you can see that I'm just stroking everything up as I'm pulling on the string and making sure it all bunches together nicely. There were, like I said earlier, some knots in my string, so I'm trying to make sure that they also don't tear this loose weave while I'm pulling them. Here, once everything's been measured down and the facing has been recut to 35 centimeters, I am just making sure it's all lined up with some of the guide strings or threads and pinning this into place. And then I'm going to go ahead and whip it down. decide on how to evenly space out my rows, I measured the whole smocked section and divided that by 4, which gave me roughly 2.1 centimeters to work with. And after measuring out where to first start, I start my first line. The way to explain this is kind of complicated. I did a variation of a herringbone stitch and made V's across the path, following a guideline. For some of the more lower ones where I did lose the thread, I kind of made my own using the marking pen. And then once I reached the end of the row, I would turn the project upside down and mirror what I was doing, and this created the X's, if that makes sense. Also, when viewing the portrait really up close, I made sure to count how many ridges of the smocking were underneath this X, and I counted 3. For the sleeves, I did a 2-2 thing. A 0-2, where I didn't have any ridges caught underneath my X's, and I stitched through 2 ridges. For this, I had 3-2. So I had 3 ridges underneath the crosses, and I stitched through 2 ridges. I originally tried the 0-2 sewing method on this, but it didn't work out as the pleats were just too dense here. But this 3-2 did actually work a lot. I entered this into Kingdom A&S, and one of the suggestions to try was probably a thicker thread, but they didn't want me to go out and redo this entire thing with like a thicker thread. But that's about it. For this part, I did not want to damage the silk thread, so I set the iron to the silk setting. In retrospect, it could have been just like a little bit hotter, but it was good enough to get rid of any of the excess red dotting. I'm just also going over the sleeves just to see if there's any like left over and inspecting them. Also, do not do as I do. That iron, I have asbestos fingers, and that iron was not that hot, but like, do not copy what I'm doing. Please do not iron your fingers, people. Yeah. So I'm just going over the gathering with the iron just to get rid of all of that red dotting, because I obviously don't want that there.